How's it going, everybody? I wanted to dive into a song that I recently made, kind of going into like the instruments, the chords, the notes, and kind of like the decisions throughout the, process of making the song. I'm definitely by no means an expert, but I kind of wanted to document my like learning experience. But I wanted to share some things I learned and maybe show people at least how I do things, because I think it's just really cool to share that, as well as kind of look back on this in the future to see maybe where I've come with making and creating music. So here we're looking at the entire song that I made for We Cannot Go Back. That's why it's hard to choose. Here has all the instruments, the automations. We're in the DAW, of FL Studio. Before we dive into any of these instruments and everything, the kind of thought I had with this song is I kind of wanted to make something pretty like powerful, relaxing, and powerful meaning like feeling of emotion. And I really do enjoy using things such as pianos and even bringing in the violins and stuff like that, and not too harsh of like the drums or really anything else. So kind of going into that, that's kind of the vibe that I wanted to, create in the atmosphere. Again, I'm no expert, but I've always started off with the piano chords. I think this is just a pretty strong foundation for like building up the next layers of the song itself. And going into the piano chords, so I'll play them out real quick, but I do have a bass layer into these chords where I just, again, you take these chords, but the bottom notes, I also have a bass playing to kind of almost make it more like powerful in a sense, or like not really sure the best word to describe that, but just feel that bass in the piano. And you can also see down here, I do control some of the velocity a little bit. So some notes are hitting a little bit different than others, going to kind of give it that like variety of sound. So it's not like too stagnant. But starting off with these chords, I use that to build pretty much every other instrument and sound that we're going to kind of go into. But these chords are actually the foundation for the rest of the song. All of the other instruments in some way or another use those, notes. It just, again, the timing and variety of like when those notes are played. Also in the beginning of the track, I do have like this like playground sound effect where it's, again, brings like that nostalgia kind of, at least in my head, and reminiscent of like younger times. I forgot exactly where I found that, but I think it was on like Splice or something, one of those apps. And at the start of the track, I do have this rain sound effect as well, again, kind of giving that like atmosphere, kind of setting the tone for the rest of the song. So those chords that we just went over for the piano go throughout pretty much the entire length of the song, and it kind of like gives that foundation, in my head to it, except for this one part in the middle where I kind of wanted to focus on this melody part. So going into this melody here, this is also, hold on, we gotta take a step back. These piano chords, in case anyone's wondering, I'm not the most organized, but this is the Labs piano, the soft piano. Really like that. I think it makes a nice, calming, gentle sort of piano vibe to it. Going into this other pattern, I'll let it play out just so you guys can hear it. I don't know why I didn't play that last note, but I had it set that way. Anyway, that essentially is kind of like a little, ARP kind of going on the back, and that goes on throughout the entire song. I have noticed that there are some songs I listen to, and a lot of them have this kind of simple, gentle ARP going through the entire song. So I wanted to try that out in like a song like this. I think it fit pretty well. And again, the notes that we're seeing here are very similar to these chords. It's just, again, the timing as well as like the octave that I put it at. And we kind of lead that slowly into, so this is a volume automation here. So we start off pretty strong with the chords, as well as we'll get to these other instruments in a second. But the chords and then the slow arp that slowly gets into the song, kind of builds it up. And again, this isn't the most organized thing, but I try to keep it organized and then it gets really messy. For this BBC Symphony Orchestra, this is I think the violin, or the cello. I'll let this play out. So actually, I just noticed this didn't play here. That's interesting. I don't actually know why, but I guess it works for the song. Again, kind of building this atmosphere. So kind of how I structured this was all of these things here are kind of I keep using the word atmosphere, but it's kind of what it is. It's the atmosphere. How does it sound like from like in the background? And then these top layers are actually driving like that melody and like maybe the thing that you guys, or like me, like I would hum. But we do a lot of, or at least I have a couple tracks for that atmosphere building. That cello is part of that. And then let's get into this drone. So this drone, also before we get into it, is another Spitfire audio. I think it's the Labs piano, but this Azure piano. Creates some really good sound effects. But anyway, we'll get into the noise. Like just a really warm sound. Kind of a little darker there, but I think it fits. So the drone in combination with the cello with those piano chords make for this great background sound in which you can, or at least I built like a melody on top of. So playing everything from the beginning, we got the rain sound effect, we got the playground noise, the drone, cello, some chords, and then that arp. And all that combined, it is how I started off this song. So before we dive into some of the other instruments as well, there is some like compression, there's some EQing on a lot of these things, and I even added some reverb as well as this like Valhalla Shimmer, which is like another plugin just to give, again, I keep using the word atmosphere, so I don't mean to be annoying, but it just makes that atmosphere is what I'm looking for. And adding that reverb and the shimmer really helps with that. So at a high level, there is reverb, some EQing, and some other sound effects or effects on those tracks going on to get those sounds that I wanted. After the first like 50 seconds is where I start introducing some of the drums. So here we have it's called a spreader, but I'll let you hear it real quick. This is just kind of like a snare, which I downloaded from a lo-fi pack. I forgot exactly what this one is, but this is the Pre-Thivi spreader. I think it's like a lo-fi pack. It also comes with like this dusty lo-fi kick, which I really like. So this is what the kick sound like. Again, I like that it's subtle, but it's got a little bit of like a punch to it, but it's not harsh, which is, again, I like the kicks and drums complementing like at least the sounds that I want to work with. And I want it to be there to like set the pacing of the song, but I don't want it to like overpower it too much. Kind of like, again, I do love chill step, but for some of these songs I want the piano and like maybe the cello to outweigh the drums. I also added a little sweep in here just to kind of transition into the drums, get the ears ready. On top of, so we get the kick in that snare, and then I added like this other like bottle cap sound. It's subtle, but I think it just adds a little bit of extra sound. And then I have this hi-hats. It's pretty gentle, and I EQ'd that as well. But I like how some of those hi-hats just kind of set. It's almost like a shaker is how I think I'm treating it in this song. But yeah, those are the drums. Very simple, pretty minimalistic. And when we get to the drum part, we do also introduce this other melody. So I'll let this play out. And again, we're using similar notes. It's just more on the timing and the length of them. One thing to note is that this is a lot higher pitched. So again, kind of giving all the different pianos and sounds in here some more room to breathe. And if we go to this EQing, I did cut off like all the low ends. Did that with a lot of the pianos. But yeah, that's where we introduced that. I did also remove the cello in that part, I think, because I just wanted, the listener to focus on the new instrument that we introduced, as well as the drums that we also introduced. So after like one or two, I guess, iterations of that, I do bring in this sound here. So this is, I guess we got to back up. As the track goes on, you come to this point at the end where it gets more climatic, and we add this like additional, I guess, sort of piano or instrument. But I wanted to tease it at least a little bit in this first part. So what I did was I took like this original like track and I just pretty much chopped it up in half. So you got half of what's coming in the near future. But to listen to that whole part, I'll let that play out here. And having that, like, I think at the end on top of everything else, again, just kind of builds that like power and maybe that emotion that I was kind of looking for in this. But as for all the tracks themselves, there's one more thing that we got to note, but that's pretty much the bulk of everything in this track. It's just that we cut out some of it in the middle to kind of give a room and like a breather for the listener, and then we bring everything back in and add that like additional top layer on top of that. I kept almost all of the drums except for the hi-hats at this ending part. I wanted one kind of segment where we get that like top melody and we remove something. So I removed this drone, I removed like this other piano melody as well, because I wanted us to focus on like this new kind of powerful instrument that we just added in this like last final act. In case you're wondering, we'll take a quick step back. This right here is just a little sweep just to like kind of get the listener ready for like either an increase in sound or like a pause. And in this case, it's a pause. Then over here, we add another sweep kind of transitioning into the last act. Then at the end, actually, I used 3 more drums on top, or bass kicks, I guess you want to call it, like kicks on top of the original lo-fi kicks that we had, and kind of, again, getting that like punch, like, okay, something's coming. We have the whoosh or the impact sound into that, where everything then cuts off. And then I cue some more rain. We get the playground sound, and then we kind of finished off bringing back those chords, getting rid of all the drums, everything else, and then getting that like simple melody down. And on top of that, I wanted to again make it a little different. I wanted to bring in the strings and again make it feel like that extra emotion. And to do that, I added just these simple like cello sounds. They're just offset a little bit, so you can see here it's like one little beat. So you're still getting these piano chords where you want them, but you're getting that offset of the string instrument, which I think sounds really nice. So just playing just the string instrument real quick. So again, pretty simple, but it's not, that's not in isolation. It's built on top of everything else. So kind of playing that ending, I think that's, to me, my favorite part of the song, because we just got done on this like journey. Then we punch it in, kind of cue everything out, and then introduce this new string that I think is pretty powerful. So kind of just playing that last maybe few seconds into that close. There's obviously that snap at the end, but one thing I did too is I re-brought this original piano chord or like melody in, but I just took that front note because I wanted, it's almost like you're starting again, but then it quickly stops. That was a little cool subtlety. But yeah, there are also some instances where we drop out, like here, some of the sounds, kind of get that pause in the whole, I guess, song itself. So I'll let you hear that. It's like right there, like we take a break from, I guess again, really quick break from everything else, and then let the bass guide us into like the next part of the song. Same thing a little bit over here too. Again, nothing like crazy, but it's little subtleties I think sound kind of nice. But yeah, overall, this was a pretty, I think, simple song. For me, this is pretty complex, but I think compared to most people, it's probably simple. But we got strong pianos. I think we got a really good foundation for the atmosphere and the background sounds going on all over here. We got a pause in the middle to kind of segue us into the final act of the I guess experience. And once we're done, we close on kind of where we started in a sense, with a little bit difference with the introduction of the cello. But again, there's some effects added to the tracks. We got like a suit of Valhalla Supermassive. We got some vintage reverb. We got a shimmer on some of the atmospheric sounds, but nothing too crazy. But overall, I really like how it came out. One thing I still need to get better at is the whole compression. So I did clip it a little bit and added a limiter, and then tried to, I guess, increase the sound to get that loudness without actually it getting louder, if that makes sense. So that's one thing I'm still definitely working on. But I think from a sound perspective, is obviously needs room for improvement, but I think so far it's pretty good. But anyway, that is how I kind of made this song. And again, it all starts from me building out, or me wanting to figure out the piano chords or the chords themselves, and then we just keep stemming the notes from there. I guess this is like the channel rack, in case anyone's wondering. There's a whole bunch of, it's kind of anarchy. But anyway, I'll probably do some more of these in the future because I think it's kind of cool to document at least my thoughts at the time. And again, no expert, but it's more just for the purpose of sharing for fun and being able to look back in the near future or even far into the future on, I guess, how I decide to make things, or I don't know. That'll be kind of cool. Anyway, take care, everybody. If you like this content, let me know, because maybe entice me to make more. If not, then maybe I won't. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.